The map shows a perfect circle, 12 kilometers in diameter, drawn in red ink on a 1979 survey chart of Leningrad Oblast. Inside the circle, someone has written in cramped Cyrillic, "All frequencies silent. Entry not recommended. 7 teams sent, 4 returned. None could explain." I'm holding File 77R Geographic, and the paper feels wrong in my hands. Too smooth, too cold. Like it's been stored somewhere with no temperature, no humidity, no presence. The file is thin, 32 pages, most of them maps and radio frequency logs showing the same thing over and over. Signal strength measurements dropping to 0 at the exact same boundary every time, regardless of frequency or power. And attached to the inside cover with a rusted paperclip is a photograph of a sign, weathered and bullet-pocked, standing at the side of a forest road. Forbidden zone. Entry prohibited. But someone has spray-painted underneath it, in dripping letters. You're already inside. Here's what the official record says. In March 1977, Soviet military communications began experiencing systematic failures in a rural area approximately 140 kilometers southeast of Leningrad. Radio transmissions would cut out. Telephone lines would go dead. Even hardwired telegraph systems would simply stop carrying signal. The affected area was small initially, maybe 2 kilometers across. Local authorities assumed equipment failure. They sent repair teams. The repair teams confirmed all equipment was functioning normally. The cables were intact. The relay stations had power. The transmitters were broadcasting, but nothing was getting through. By April, the dead zone had expanded to 5 kilometers in diameter. Radio Moscow couldn't be heard inside the boundary. Television broadcasts dissolved into static at the edge. Even shortwave frequencies from foreign stations, signals that could bounce around the world, died the moment they crossed into the affected area. The Soviet Ministry of Communications sent a technical assessment team. 12 specialists with frequency analyzers, signal strength meters, electromagnetic field detectors. They were supposed to identify the source of interference and resolve it within 1 week. They set up a perimeter station just outside the affected area and began taking measurements. The team leader, engineer Anatoly Krasov, filed his initial report on April 19, 1977.
Preliminary analysis reveals no conventional explanation for signal loss. All electromagnetic radiation, radio, television, even ambient cosmic background radiation exhibits dramatic attenuation at boundary of affected zone. Attenuation does not follow inverse square law. Signal strength does not gradually decrease with distance. It terminates abruptly at a fixed perimeter. Boundary is geometrically perfect, circular. Radius approximately 2.5 kilometers from central point, located in forest region 15 kilometers north of village of Osinovka. No geological features present that could explain phenomenon. No military installations, no industrial facilities, just forest and abandoned farmland. Most concerning, boundary is expanding. Rate of expansion approximately 100 meters per week. If expansion continues, zone will encompass Osinovka within 3 months, regional city of Gachina within 2 years. Establish permanent monitoring station, prevent civilian access, investigate central point of phenomenon.
The KGB took over the investigation within 24 hours. They established a security perimeter, evacuated the village of Osinovka due to agricultural contamination concerns, and sent in the first exploration team on April 23, 1977. The team consisted of 6 men, 2 KGB officers, 2 military communications specialists, 1 geologist, 1 physicist. They were equipped with portable radio transceivers, emergency flares, and instructions to proceed to the central point of the zone and identify the source of the interference. They entered the zone at 09 Hasaro. Radio contact was lost at 0903. The perimeter station tried to re-establish communication. No response. They tried emergency frequencies. Silence. They fired signal flares that should have been visible for kilometers. Nothing. At 17 so, 5 of the 6 men emerged from the zone, walking slowly. No equipment, no explanation. The debriefing transcript is in the file.
What happened inside the zone?
Subject unresponsive, staring at hands.
Where is the 6th team member? Where is Officer Volkov? He stopped. We kept walking, but he stopped. Said he could hear something. We couldn't hear anything. There's no sound inside. No wind, no birds, no sound at all. Complete silence. He said he could hear something underneath the silence. He stopped walking, and we kept walking, and when we looked back, he was gone. Gone? Please clarify. The forest is thick. Trees very close together. But you can see for kilometers. Everything is visible. No shadows. The light doesn't come from anywhere. It's just present. Uniform. He was standing behind us, and then he wasn't standing anywhere. Did you search for him? We tried to go back. We walked toward where he'd been, but distance doesn't work correctly inside. We walked for what felt like hours. Never got any closer to where he'd been. Never got any farther from where we were. Eventually, we decided to turn back. We walked toward the perimeter, and we were outside immediately, like no time had passed. But it was evening. We'd been inside for 8 hours. Did you reach the center of the zone? There is no center. We walked for hours toward where the center should be. The geometry is wrong inside. Distances don't, the paths don't lead anywhere. You can see your destination. You can walk toward it. You never arrive. The zone is larger on the inside than the outside.
All 5 returning team members were placed under psychiatric observation. Their stories were consistent, perfectly consistent. They described the same impossible geometry, the same sourceless light, the same absolute silence. And they all reported the same sensation, the feeling of being watched by something that had no location, no form, just presence. The missing man, Officer Mikhail Volkov, was never found. The KGB sent in a second team on May 2nd. This time, 8 men, connected by physical tethers, climbing rope, 100 meters of it, tied at intervals so no one could become separated. They entered at 10 Moss. The rope went slack at 10:04. By 15, 6 of the 8 men had returned, stumbling out of the zone, still connected by rope. The rope between them showed no signs of cutting or damage, but the sections that should have connected them to the 2 missing men simply ended. Clean terminations, not cuts, not frayed, just stopped, as if that section of rope had never existed. The 6 survivors had no memory of the 2 men disappearing. They remembered 8 people entering. They remembered 6 people present. They couldn't reconcile the contradiction. One of them, communications specialist Boris Lebedev, tried to explain it in his debriefing.
It's not that they disappeared. It's that the zone doesn't hold all of us at the same time. We went in as 8, but inside we were 6. We've always been 6. The rope connects to no one because there is no one else to connect to. Inside the zone, the 2 missing men never existed. But out here, they exist, and we can remember them, and the rope remembers being attached to them. But inside the zone rewrites how many of us there are.
He was institutionalized 3 days later after attempting to walk back into the zone, claiming, "There are versions of me still inside, and I can feel them, and they want me to come back and be whole." By June 1977, the zone had expanded to 8 kilometers in diameter. The expansion rate was accelerating. The KGB authorized a 3rd expedition. This time, they changed approach. Instead of sending men deep into the zone, they would establish a series of way stations just inside the perimeter, extending slowly inward, maintaining constant visual contact with the perimeter at all times. The team leader was Major Grigory Ustinov, experienced in deep wilderness operations, survival training, psychological resilience assessment. He selected 12 men. They would work in pairs, establishing camps at 500-meter intervals, always keeping the perimeter in sight. They entered on June 15, 1977. The perimeter observers watched through binoculars as the teams moved inward, setting up their first way station. The process took approximately 1 hour. The teams were clearly visible the entire time. Then, simultaneously, all 6 way stations were already established. The perimeter observers reported seeing all 12 men at all 6 camps at the same time, not moving between camps, present at all locations simultaneously. The same men, the same movements, repeated at each position. The observers tried to make sense of what they were seeing. They filed reports describing temporal distortion and visual echo effects and possible optical interference. But their logs show something else. The timestamps don't make sense. Events are recorded out of sequence. An observer notes Team 3 establishing camp at 11:47, and then 15 minutes earlier notes Team 3 returning from completed camp at 11:32. The teams emerged from the zone at 18, all 12 men, unharmed. No missing personnel this time. But when they were debriefed individually, their stories didn't match. They each described establishing one camp. Just one. But they each described establishing it in a different location. And when asked about the other teams, they couldn't remember seeing anyone else inside the zone. Major Ustinov submitted his report on June 17th.
The zone does not operate according to normal spatial principles. My recommendation, do not send additional personnel inside. The zone does not consume people. It fragments them, creates versions, multiple simultaneous states. I entered as one person. I existed as 6 people. I could see myself at other camps. I was at other camps. I remember being at all 6 camps simultaneously. But also I was only ever at one camp, but also I never left the perimeter. I am writing this report. I am also still inside the zone writing a different report. I am also back at the perimeter station, never having entered. All versions are true. The zone contains all possible paths and makes all of them real. I recommend full evacuation of the perimeter. I recommend expanding the exclusion boundary to 50 kilometers. I recommend...
The report ends mid-sentence. There's a notation in the file margin. Major Ustinov admitted to psychiatric facility June 18th. Continues to insist he is still inside the zone. Claims his body outside is just one version that happened to exit. The facility records show Ustinov died in 1981. Heart failure. But the attending physician noted something in the death report that was immediately classified.
Patient's final words. The version of me that stayed inside is calling. It says the zone is ready now. It says I can come back and merge with all the other versions. It says we can finally be whole.
By August 1977, the zone had reached 12 kilometers in diameter, and the expansion had stopped. No explanation. It simply stopped growing. The perimeter was exactly circular. The boundary was exactly defined. Cross it, and all radio frequencies died instantly. All sound disappeared, and according to every measurement they could take from outside, the interior of the zone contained nothing unusual. No radiation, no electromagnetic anomalies, just forest and abandoned buildings and silence. The KGB established permanent monitoring posts around the perimeter. Guards rotated every 6 hours. Longer shifts led to what they called perimeter dissolution syndrome. Symptoms included difficulty maintaining sense of self, sensation of existing in multiple locations simultaneously, compulsive desire to enter the zone. 3 guards entered the zone voluntarily between 1977 and 1979. None returned. The file contains maps, dozens of them, all showing the same perfect circle. But someone has annotated them over the years, adding details in different handwriting, different ink colors, different dates. 1978. Observed lights inside zone at night, sourceless, moving in patterns. 1979. Reconnaissance drone entered zone. Telemetry ceased at boundary. Drone never emerged. Visual observation showed drone continuing to fly in straight line, but also showed drone crashed in trees, but also showed drone never existed. 1980. Local residents report hearing voices from inside zone. Voices speaking Russian, but grammar is wrong. Verb tenses suggest speakers exist in multiple times simultaneously. 1982. Zone interior photographed using long-range telescopic equipment. Photographs show abandoned village inside zone. Village does not appear on any historical maps. Buildings appear and disappear between photographs taken minutes apart. 1985. Magnetic field measurements around perimeter show anomalous fluctuation. Field strength varies based on observer's position, not measurement location. 2 observers taking simultaneous readings from same point record different values. And then, in 1986, something changed. The perimeter observers reported seeing people inside the zone. Not the missing team members, others, civilians, families, children, walking through the forest, going about daily activities, completely unaware they were being observed. The figures appeared and disappeared, sometimes dozens of them visible at once, sometimes none. They never acknowledged the perimeter observers. They never appeared to see the boundary markers or the guard posts. They were living their lives inside a place where reality had fractured. A surveillance report from October 1986.
Observed family unit, 2 adults, 3 children, establishing camp approximately 2 kilometers inside zone. Watched them for 6 hours. They made fire, prepared food, interacted normally. Then, simultaneously, they were breaking camp. Also, simultaneously, they had never arrived. Also, simultaneously, they had always been there. All three states observable at once. Question: are we observing people who entered the zone and became trapped? Or are we observing fragments of people, versions of possibilities, echoes of lives that could have happened if the zone had never existed? Recommend psychological evaluation for all perimeter personnel. The zone affects perception even from outside.
The final document in the file is dated December 1990, shortly before the Soviet Union collapsed. It's a proposal to seal the zone permanently. Concrete barriers, military exclusion. No observation, no monitoring, just containment. The proposal was denied. Instead, someone, the signature is illegible, ordered one final investigation. Not an exploration team, just one person, a volunteer, someone who understood the risks. The volunteer was Dr. Svetlana Kasina, physicist, 47 years old, specialist in quantum mechanics and probability theory. She'd reviewed all the previous reports. She'd interviewed the survivors. She had a theory. Her final research notes, filed the day before she entered.
The zone is not a place where signals die. It's a place where all possible signals exist simultaneously. Radio waves don't stop. They propagate in all possible directions, all possible frequencies, all possible modulations, all at once. The result is perfect cancellation. Every signal and every anti-signal, every possibility and every impossibility. The same applies to space, to time, to matter. Inside the zone, all versions of reality overlap. Every path you could take exists. Every decision you could make is made. You enter as one person and exist as infinite versions simultaneously. The missing personnel aren't gone. They're still inside, existing in all the paths they didn't take out here. Every version of them that could have been. I'm going in because I think I can prove this. I think if I enter with the understanding that I'm not one person but infinite possibilities, I might be able to navigate it, to hold all versions of myself together and exit consciously, or I might fragment like all the others. But someone has to understand what this place is. Someone has to explain it before it starts growing again.
Dr. Kasina entered Sector Void on January 8, 1991, at 14 Zimwas. She did not emerge. But that night, at 2347, every monitoring station around the perimeter received a transmission. Not on radio, not on any frequency. The message appeared on paper, printed on the teletype machines, written in the logbooks, scrawled on the walls in handwriting that matched Dr. Kasina's. All at once, all saying the same thing.
I am inside. I am also outside. I am everywhere the zone could be. It's not a place. It's all the places that didn't happen. All the versions of the world that could have existed if different choices were made. They all exist here, overlapping, simultaneous. I can see myself exiting the zone. I can see myself staying inside forever. I can see myself never having entered. All versions are real. All versions are me. The zone is growing again, not outward, inward. It's collapsing all possible spaces into one impossible space. Eventually, it will overlap with everything, everyone. All possible versions of the world will exist simultaneously. And then signals won't die. They'll just mean everything and nothing, forever. I'm still inside. I'm also writing this from outside. Both are true. All are true. The zone receives all possibilities.
The message ended. Dr. Kasina was never seen again. But perimeter personnel continued to report seeing her inside the zone. Walking, working, setting up equipment, and also sitting motionless. and also running, and also lying on the ground, and also standing at the boundary looking out, all at once. All versions of her that could exist, existing. The file ends with a status report from 1995.
Sector void remains stable, 12-kilometer diameter. No expansion detected since 1977. No successful retrieval of personnel. Total missing, 23 individuals across all expeditions. Perimeter monitoring continues. Local residents instructed zone is contaminated military testing ground. Cover story accepted. Recommend maintenance of status quo. Recommend no further investigation. Recommend...
The rest is blank. I close the file. There's something they didn't include. Something I found in the archived surveillance photos. A photograph from 2003. Satellite imagery. High resolution. Shows the zone from above. The forest canopy is visible. The boundary is clear. A perfect circle of normal forest. And inside the circle, something else. The vegetation appears normal in some areas, absent in others, present in overlapping patterns that shouldn't be possible from a fixed satellite position. But in the center of the zone, there's a clearing. And in the clearing, spelled out in what appears to be human figures standing in formation, large enough to see from orbit. All possibilities are real. I count the figures, 23, the exact number of missing personnel. They're all still there, all the versions of them, standing in all the positions they could have stood in, existing in all the moments they could have existed, forever. File 77R Geographic is closed. Sector Void was designated a permanent exclusion zone in 1977, but the zone doesn't exclude, it includes. It includes every version of every person who enters, every path they could take, every choice they could make, every state they could exist in, all simultaneously, all real. I'm Ian Cartwell, and I've been writing this for 30 minutes, but also I've been writing it for hours. And also I finished 10 minutes ago and I can feel all three timelines overlapping because I read the file about Sector Void, and now I understand. Signals don't die inside the zone. They become all possible signals, which means they become every signal and no signal, which means silence. Perfect silence. The silence of infinite sound canceling itself out. The sector void is still there, still growing inward, still collecting all the versions of reality that didn't happen. And someday, the zone will overlap with here, with now, with you. And you'll exist in all possible states simultaneously, and signals will die because they'll mean everything, which means they'll mean nothing, forever. I'm closing this file. I'm also still reading it. Both are true.